And good evening to everybody. Listen, we are just a tad bit behind. We did a TikTok earlier, so we're getting ready to get started. So, welcome tonight to the seat at the table. Evangelist is joining us now, so we do welcome all of you tonight. You know that our topic was, and we'll complete that. So, we hope that that topic that we were on, dealing with getting to the root of things. I'm hoping that, and I'm praying that it did help somebody, that it was helping somebody, and that it's still helping a lot of you all tonight. Because when we look at the issues that we all have faced from our childhood, from relationships and friendships, from dealing with neighbors and just dealing with life itself, we got to recognize that there are things that caused us to get to the places that we were, to the disputes, the arguments. There were things that happened to mold us, shape us into the people that we are. You know, there are things that have been said by sociologists, psychologists, as well as psychiatrists, that sometimes our environment tend to depict, tend to cause us to become who we are, that we become the product of our environment. One thing I've learned through life itself, that we don't always generally become the product of our environment. Our environment does help to yield us, shape us. But what I do look at is that our behavior, our character, begins to get to the place where we learn new things, we pick up new things. When you look at the word habit, you got to go back to the root of it, or to the origin of the word. And the origin of the word comes from a Latin word which simply means to wear. You wear what we are. A lot of times we have heard the words, you are what you eat. Where I'm from, we've all heard the saying that pretty much, show me your company, I'll tell you who you are. Birds of a feather flock together. Hey, Tam, how are you? So, you know, we don't always become that. I mean, we associate. Association, we've heard these words bring on simulation. We tend to pick the people that are similar to us, like the same things like we like, pretty much do some of the same things that we do. They talk the same talk that we talk. They handle things in the same way that we handle things. They're not afraid of heading into things. They're not afraid of dealing with situations. They will handle the situation the same way that we'll handle it. If it need to be dealt with, they'll fight. If we need to fight, they'll fight for us if we need them to fight for us. Some of you have some of the same types of girlfriends. Girls tend to blend in with girls that are like-mindedness. They like the same type of dolls. They play the same type of games. They don't play marbles. They are not fearful. They're not fretful. Same thing with guys. You find people that will conversate with the same kind of conversation. You are not afraid of being in a position that you like the same kind of guys. You know, hey, look how he look. I don't really like him. You know, she don't really deal with what I deal with. You know, just depends on what the conversations really are. So when we look at life, people tend to find folk that are easily persuaded. So when we get to root of things, you find out whether or not you're easily able to be brought into certain mannerisms, certain characters, certain dispositions. If I can easily get you to give me what I want, get you to do what I want you to do, if I can cause you to become afraid by bullying you of some sort, get you to agree to certain things because I know you like chocolate, I know you like Big Macs, you know, back in the day, you know, they say big girls, you know, they love to eat, or certain girls love to eat. Buy them a meal, and you can get what you want to get out of them, because all of these things started when they were small. They like candy, so you give them candy, you can get what you want to get out of them. Or you tell them they're gonna get in trouble if they tell somebody that you touched them the wrong way, inappropriately, or you can lure them in because you earn their trust in certain ways. And these cycles continue because you find people that you allow yourself to give your authority over to. God gave us these authorities in the beginning. So when you look in the book of Genesis, by the time you get into chapter number 2, he tells Adam that he gave him dominion. He told him to subdue, and he gave him dominion a second time. So who did you give your authority to in the beginning, in the early stages of your life? Who did you allow to make you feel that you just had to allow them the opportunity to control you, to lead you, to guide you, to make you feel as though their world was the only world existed, and your world could not exist without you being around them? You went to bed and you was always talking about them, but it was never about you, and you had to yield to them. You just had to run around them, and your mama kept telling you, your daddy kept telling you, you have to learn to be a leader. You have to learn to be a leader, but they never really gave you all of the tools that were necessary to understand what it was not to allow somebody to be the person to always tell you what to do without you guys learning how to do it yourself. Right. Then you found yourself in a situation where either male or female easily brought you into things, and you was always the one getting in trouble. Then you found yourself in a position that you didn't understand what the feelings were, and they told you it's okay. Yeah, they use those things of comfort. They found comfort foods. They found comfort feelings where I got you, just cry on my shoulder. And you found yourself in a position where they were always, I got you, girl. Man, don't worry about it. And they just eased themselves. And just as you see me rubbing on my wife, they found themselves easing their hands in places. And, you just felt comfortable. You was at a place of ease. And, you didn't realize what was going on, and you didn't worry about it. You felt uncomfortable, but you was afraid to tell them to stop. And then it just kept gravitating and gravitated and gravitated, and it became more and more. And you was afraid because either they were a friend of the family, they was a family member, they was an aunt, there was an uncle, there was a cousin, sometimes it was a brother, and you found yourself in a position where you fell. That's right, you fell into that trap. Or it was a friend. Somebody at school, somebody on the school bus, somebody on the school ground. They caught you in a corner. And this was the beginning of you felt of not being able to disassociate what really was right and wrong. Now, let me help you understand what I mean by that, not what the actual definition of right and wrong, because you knew what right and wrong was. They put you at a place to where you were straddling the fence of knowing, should I, shouldn't I, is it, isn't? Well, what I do know what is right, they're telling me, no, it's okay to do this as long as I don't let nobody know. And I still act as though I'm a girl, and I still act as though I'm a boy. It's okay because we can do this, because I fell into some of them same traps. But then at the same time, I recognize, wait a minute, I'm a dude. Hold up. You telling me that boys act like this, but I see you kissing on a girl, and I see you sleeping with a girl, but you keep forcing me, and you telling me we got to hide to do this. Hold up. And then I found myself in the world of running a whole lot of women to prove that I was, but I never desired to be with another male, because I felt I just had to be with a whole bunch of women because of what I allowed to happen to me, because I was afraid, because you were this, and if I told this, you told me you would take my life. So many people had these things happen, or they were brutalized, but nobody wanted to believe it. And then when it finally was said, nothing still was done, or it was pushed under the rug, or they were moved away, or you found yourself not being able to go back over and play with them again because you were told to disassociate yourself with them, don't go around them. And these things have happened to so many people throughout lives. Even in relationships, you got mixed up of what love was because you got beat in a relationship, you got yelled at in a relationship, you got hurt in a relationship. So when you finally found somebody that loved you, you found yourself in a place where now you can't love this person because you got to recreate the thing that happened. You got to get them to fuss at you, yell at you, push you. You got to get them to almost get ready to strike you, to know that they love you, because you don't know how to be loved without being told you're worthless, told you're nothing, told you're no good. You got to make them force you in the place of all kinds of positions where you don't feel like that. Yes, those things do happen. So these are the origins. And then when you finally find somebody that love you because they make you feel like you're handsome, they make you feel like you're beautiful, they let you know that they love the way you shape, they love the way your face, your eyes, your hair, the texture of your hair, the smell of you, they love the way you do the things you do, they love the texture of your food, they love the smell of your breath, they love just the way your heart sounds, they love the touch of you, period, they love just your presence. You don't know what to do, and you're afraid that if you do anything different, they love to hear your voice. You now have to learn how to not create a world that will create disaster. Exactly. Or if you say something, it will destroy the family. So now you have to learn to love you, because what we don't do is we don't learn to take time to, let me use this word, to exfoliate, to detox, to mentally, to emotionally, to socially, to get to a place to psychologically come to grips in terms of who we really are, what we are, to know that it's okay to be who we are. And know that God created you, because in the beginning, everything that God created, he said was good. That was the feelings of somebody else, and because of what they had already went through, and because they knew that they had power over you, and they were able to put you in that place, in that mental state, to put you in a place to where you created this fear within yourself. You got to remember that John said these words here. First John, I believe it is, chapter 3 or chapter 4. He says that we cannot know love if we always afraid. And that's paraphrasing what he says, because when you're living in fear, then you don't really know what love is. But when you really know what love is, you now know that there is no fear. He said, perfect love casteth out all fear. That's what he says in the text. He says, perfect love casteth out all fear. And in perfect love, there's no torment. If you're in a friendship, if you're in a friendship on a job, if you are in a relationship, whether you're living with somebody, whether you're dating them, whether you're married to them, whether you're engaged to them, you're planning on getting engaged to them, you're planning on making this a full committal relationship, and you feel as though you're tormented because there's some things happening, then there's some questions that need to be brought about. You need to find out what it is that's causing you to feel that way before you go any further. My wife and I still sit down and talk about it, because I need to know, are you happy? What's not making you happy? Let's go back to the place where we both were happy. Let's go back to the things that were causing you to be happy. We have to maintain our happiness, so that I don't want you to just make me happy. We need to be happy together. It's not about you keeping me happy. It's about us being happy. This is no longer about me or you. This is about us, because in that, it now generates, what she said, talk to me.
She says, but what if all you know is fear?
If all you know is fear, then now you got to learn to know how to no longer torment yourself. Then at that place, you're allowing yourself to be tormented. You got to remove the torment from yourself. If all you know is fear, then that means you have allowed yourself to be trapped in a dungeon. You lived in that dungeon. Now it's time to be free. It's time to break free of that mold. It's time to escape the prison that you've allowed yourself to be locked in, and all the things that naturally, physically, whatever God has been doing, whatever God has done, the doors to the cage that God has unlocked, the freedom that he has set before you, because he said, behold, I set before thee an open door, not just doors for businesses, not just doors for love, not just doors for mental, social, psychological, intimate, sexual, physical, economical, financial freedom, but just the mere freedom to know that I can rest within myself. For me to be at a place to mentally finally say and breathe. Because you got to be at a place that you're no longer afraid to wake up, go to sleep, walk out the door, even just go in the bathroom to do number one or number two, to be able to pick your towel up, wash your face, to be able to pick your toothbrush up, put some toothpaste on it, and be afraid, to be able to turn around, to be able to go to the lake and throw a fishing line in the lake, catch a fish, and wonder what's going to happen, to look at your children, to look in the mirror, to just think about what do I look like, to fix your hair, to put your shoes on, to put a pair of shorts on, to put a dress on, to put a pair of jeans on, and say, I just want to fix myself up. You can't do that, whether you're male or female, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, no matter what you are, whether you a $1.5 or whether you a $1.5 wet, whether you 200 pounds, 500 pounds, you got to know that you love who you are. And you got to not be afraid of the person that you become, the person that you want to become, the person that you know you are. So you have to get to the root of what it was that you gave and say, I'm no longer going to allow myself to live here. And if you know you got a relationship with Christ, Christ gave you freedom. He died for all of those things on Calvary. When he died at Calvary, he didn't just die just for the sins of the world. He died that we all might be free of everything. When he said, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I'll give you rest, that meant rest in every area. That meant laden of everything, of anything, no matter what you are. He says, you know, therefore, if any man be in Christ, is what Paul told the church at Corinth in his second letter recorded, his third letter written. He says, if any man be in Christ. So no matter what your lifestyle was, what matter of life you were living before, now that you're in it, even if you backslid, he's still saying, all you got to do is ask me for forgiveness. Now let me put you back on the right path. Let me set you back where you were. And now let's move forward. So if you're beating yourself up because that was a mistake, that was a thought, that was some things that came up, okay, let's move forward. Let's get up. Now, let's learn to discipline ourselves and not put ourselves back in jail, not back in prison. He says, stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made you free, and be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage. Why would you put bonds back on yourself? Why would you put the shackles back on? Because somebody now have imprisoned you because they know what you did. They know what you were. They know what you were. Okay, so what? A whole lot of people know what I was, but I won't let you put me back in jail. I won't let you put shackles back on me. I won't let you tie my hands back up. You won't put me back in bondage because of what I did. Or even if you saw me stumble 5 months ago, and so what? I got up. If Christ forgave me, but you didn't, that's you. We allow things to keep us where we are and bring us back to putting us in a prison and holding us in bondage where we're stuck, and we allow them now to create new roots. Paul told the church at Colossae that we have to get rid of the rudiments of the world. And instead of us putting walls up or building walls or creating new walls or just burying it and putting a marker so we can go back to it and we can find it again, or finding that same person that has the like-mindedness or the same kind of spirit, we can't allow that to happen again. We can't drown it in a bottle. We can't put it in a needle. We can't just say, okay, well, just hold me right now. Don't worry about what's going on. It's going to be all right. Just sit there and listen to it. Just because you're not talking back to them and they're telling you the things that they used to tell you, they tell you all the little sweet nothings they used to say and how they used to do it, the way they used to do it, the manner they used to do it, how it used to be in the manner it used to be in, and where we used to go and how we used to do it, all the positions we used to do it in and the places we used to do it at and how well it was. And now the brain now begins to remember, and what happens, it allows your senses now to recreate a smell, and all of a sudden now you smelling all of these things again, and you're trying to figure out where the aroma came. What happens, the brain now recreates all of these things all over again. You don't believe it? Check the science.
You know, one of the greatest things and one of the biggest things, remember whenever the color purple came out, And when The Color Purple came out, when the movie started with the young lady that was playing the character of Silly dealing with abuse. She was physically abused, sexually abused by her father, where her mother's husband, her stepfather, that never looked at her as being his child. He never looked at her sister as being his child. But one of the biggest things that I looked at is that she found herself not only being married off by the man that abused her, but he put her in a abusive situation. Sometimes in this day and time, one of the biggest things that I look at, especially those of us that are now in our 40s and our 50s, the ones of us that are in our 30s, we don't have arranged marriages. We have marriages and relationships that we have allowed ourselves to get into.
Well, now I beg to differ just a little bit, because sometimes our friends arrange us to be with certain people that we think or they think are best for us. Yeah. Girl, I know what you've been through, man. I got somebody that's good for you. I know what you went through in your last relationship, your last marriage. Oh, girl wasn't hitting for you. Oh, boy just wasn't doing it. I got somebody right for you. And they already picking them out for you. So technically they not arranged, but they are arranged.
I got you. So what tends to happen, and what I look at, is that what tends to happen whenever we have dealt with some form of abuse,
right,
we tend to find ourselves in abusive relationships. And whenever we look at it and we get to the root of things, we find out where the start of things. That's just like with me. I can't talk about nobody else's situation. I can talk about me. With me, I look back at the men that I was dating. And one of the biggest things that I look at, most of us as women, whenever, especially when we was in our teenage years, y'all know the smart boy was not cute. Everybody know that smart, nerdy boy was not cute. He was not hitting it. Most of us wanted a bad boy. Right. Most of us wanted that energetic guy, that guy that was always up to something, always into something, especially by me being raised up in the church. So, church boys was not exciting. So most of the time, whenever I dated, it was definitely not in the church. Why? Because that's where I was always at. So it seemed like everything outside of the church was more exciting to me. It wasn't until I started growing up and started looking at, wait a minute, what am I choosing? I noticed that I started choosing men that were not educated. They quit school, or they had criminal records. And I started thinking about that thing. So whenever I started looking at it, I said, hold up, here, pause. This is not what I want to continue dating. See, sometimes we have to look at our own situation and we have to examine our own situation. So whatever route it was for me, your route is going to be different. But one of the biggest things that I look at is when we look at roots and plants and stuff, or if you dig a hole in the ground and you look at the different roots, you have a lot of roots. If I pull one of these plants out now and I hold it up like this, we're going to see a lot of roots winding and twining within the soil. So whenever you look at it, it's just running every which way, and it all connect back up to one plant. And I say that because of the fact a lot of times we have a lot of things that's going on within us that's just going everywhere, but we're just one person.
Right.
So a lot of times we have to go back, because sometimes if you shake your plant, you'll start seeing that the little thin roots will start breaking off, but the large roots is what you want to be looking at. And when you look at the large roots, now you see where those little small roots that started coming out of the thicker root, because now that's where your source was. That's where your problem began. That's where everything began at, because that was your main nutrients. So a lot of times, each one of us have to go back and we have to look at our own situation. The purpose of this series is that no, it's not going to happen overnight. I'm not going to fool you and tell you it happened overnight. It was in my 20s, almost 30s, when I realized and said, hey, you know what? This is definitely not what I want, because I don't want a husband that has a criminal background, that's in and out of jail. Why? Because my life is not going to be on hold because you decided that you got to go and do the next 20 years locked up. Sorry, negative. That's not me. I'm not going to sit out here and wait on you. So I knew that I'm not going to be a self and collect calls. I'm not going to do it. And I knew that because I knew me. You get what I'm saying? And a lot of times, whenever you say stuff like that, people be like, "Oh, you got such high standards." That's not high standards. That's saying what I am going to accept for myself and what I'm not going to accept for myself.
But it does go back to the word standard, because if you don't, and that goes to what Shaquita had asked, her daughter had asked, if there is, first of all, that's not a standard. If you don't look at the fact that you don't establish a certain quality of standard to live by, then yeah, you will be at that place. Then it goes back to what you said. Also, you looked at the type of people you decided that you wanted. You didn't want anybody in the church, but you wanted the bad boy. You want well, type of bad boy, and you begin to get people that really wasn't educated. But then you also got to look at, okay, what kind of people was I around in my home? Were anybody in my home ever dealing with people that didn't have education?
Exactly.
So, again, that goes back to association bring on stimulation. So, and you remember we had talked once, you said in our last meeting, your father didn't have education. Your stepfather doesn't have education. So your mom was married to two people that were both non-educated men that she was married to. Okay, were anybody else that mom ever dated, were they educated? Did they have any kind of form of education or any form of education? So now these are things you have to look at that may not look like in the beginning that had any bearing on the type of people that you decided that you wanted to deal with. Yes. But in actuality, that does have to deal with behavior, choices, people you're going to deal with, because now you look at, okay, that's what mom did. This is what mom was able to do. I can do the same thing because I have the upper hand. I have more education. So I have a little bit more wit, sense, knowledge, understanding. I have a little bit more wherewithal, and I can do things a little bit different than they can. So I can do things and I can pull the wool over their eyes without them knowing I'm pulling the wool over their eyes. Not that they don't have any understanding and knowledge, but I have some knowledge in areas that they don't. So I can talk in ways that they won't really catch what I'm saying when I say certain things in a certain way. So you have to look at all of that. So all of that has a lot to do with it. But you also have to standard. You're right. Why would you want, as a person, male or female, want somebody that want a repetitive life doing something that can not bring you at a place of foundational safety, economical safety, financial safety, physical safety, emotional safety, affectionate safety, just to say that you have somebody in your life, to say that this is love. Where is the real love at? Doesn't mean that there is no love. No, it doesn't mean that. Where's the understanding in something like that? Because you going back and forth, because it does create a rift. So now you're bargaining with yourself. You're saying that I'm in denial without saying I'm in denial, because you're living in denial, like we talked about the other night. Because at the end of the day, you're saying that you're not worth anything, and they know that you're really not worth anything because you treat yourself like you're not worth anything. So they handle you like you're not worth anything, while they're doing multiple things anyway, because you're waiting on them so they can do whatever they want. So they make you put your life on hold because you've chosen to do that. So it goes to what Shaquita said. I'm living in fear. What do I do about it? How do I come out of it? First of all, you got to know what you're worth. And that's what you're saying with standard. No, that don't mean that you're better than anybody, because that means I know I'm better than what anybody else would think. So because I believe that, I know that, and I know what I'm worth. And if I'm not worth anything to you, I'm worth a heck of a lot to myself. No, I was just adding to what you were saying, because it makes sense. And not only does it make sense, if you as a person, especially as a woman, never recognize her worth, we as men, period, the majority of us will always take for granted. We would always not only take for granted, but misuse and abuse it and do whatever we feel we're going to do with it. And because of that, that's why a lot of times And then some women don't really care about what their worth is anyway, as long as they get what they want to get and they got the pleasure or they got what they want to get, or as my grandmother said, they got a wet tail and they done got what they wanted. They feel they done enjoyed it, and as long as he come back and give it to them when they want to give it to them, and they got some painted nails and they got their hair done and got their face beat up and got their toes done, whatever, or and if they don't get it from that one, they get it from the next one, but you feel down, you feel less. You feel empty. You feel used. You feel like, why do I keep doing this? Now you're whining and crying, you in a shell while you still want to be out with everybody else. So now you got to put this face on and you have nothing. Why? So now when you get to the root of it, like you just said, you have to now, first of all, take authority over you before you can take the authority over what you allow somebody else to do. Because when you take authority back over you, then that now locks the door for somebody else getting in. They don't have access codes. You changed everything. You went in, you changed the whole computer system. So everything about it, they have no access code. You got a whole new Norton system on it. You got everything on it with a malware, spyware, and everything else. They can't get into it. They can't backdoor. You don't give them the password. You got a password on it that you yourself got to make sure you remember, because every time you get on it, you got to remember what the password is. Because half my passwords I can't remember, so I got them written down, but nobody have access to them but me.
Right.
So you have to be at a place to where it's not easy. And the keystrokes, they can't figure out what the keystrokes is, because if you're not careful, most people remember your passwords or figure your passwords out by keystrokes. Not just because you didn't gave it to them, but just by the keystroke. What keystrokes people have in your life that they can unlock every area of your life. How is it that everybody can access you but the person that you say you're in love with? Or the person that you said that you're going to be with and you've committed to for the rest of your life? So when you get to the root of it, like you said, the root now has been cut off. You just gave the example with the flowers. You see all of the roots. You see the little small thin roots, and you have the large roots. The large roots are the ones that you pull all of the source of all of the vital minerals, nutrients, phosphorus, all of the magnesium and everything else that the plant needs to grow. The small ones, they try to draw off of it, but those small hair-like follicles come off of the larger roots. But if you have more small roots that are growing off of the larger roots, they can, as you just said, if everybody's paying attention, choke out the larger roots, and they'll draw more nutrients from the larger roots, and they'll cause your plants to die because they're choking them out. So what's choking out the rest of your life that's keeping you at a place to where you still in fear, you still in bondage, you still in denial, you have not come to the place of acceptance, or the acceptance that you come to is only at the level that as long as they're not around, you haven't heard about them, you haven't seen them, you don't see a picture of them, they haven't called, you haven't looked back at an old text message, haven't seen an old letter, you ain't seen no videos of them, you haven't passed by the house, haven't passed by the job, none of these things. So you can accept the fact that they're not there. You're not lonely. The person you with don't remind you of them. They ain't wore something, haven't walked like them, haven't said nothing like them. They didn't put on no cologne, no perfume like the person. So you can accept the fact that you've moved on for the moment until UNTIL, until you get to the place you done had enough of the person you with, because y'all done had a disagreement, or you just don't want to be bothered with them today, or they ain't touch you the right way, you done told them leave you alone, don't touch you, don't get near to you, they came in and you don't want to hear it today, you don't want to be bothered, you're just feeling down, they didn't do you nothing, it ain't them, it's you, and all these other things, because you started having these reminiscences, and all of a sudden some came on the television, you was having a tearjerker, you was watching Netflix, you was watching Lifetime and all these other things, and just so happened you was watching Power on the television, and Stars had something on it, and it started showing some things that made you remember and had a scene and somebody looked like them. That's the problem. Stop reminiscing over some things that will bring you at a place that will cause you to be in position that will not allow you to move forward. If you have let go, then let go. If you have moved on, move on. If you're going forward, go forward. I had a car one time, the only gear that it had was drive. In order to go in reverse, I had to put that sucker gun in neutral and use my foot and push that sucker backwards. So I had to make sure I had a parking spot anywhere I parked. Well, I was going forward because if it wasn't on the hill, boy, that was some work. And don't let me have to have people in the car with me. And these jokers wasn't trying to help me push the car out of the parking spot. Because that meant my left leg had to be the one to help me push while I'm trying to turn with the right arm, push with the left leg, and guide the car, looking back, and everybody else just sitting in the car. So you got the weight of the car, because the car is almost a ton, it's a half ton. And it have become a ton now if you got 3 other patrons in the car with you. Mm-hmm. Now imagine carrying all of that weight while you have a relationship and you in fear of now saying something in your sleep, while you're with a person, out on a date, or just so happen, God forbid, you pass by the person. And now y'all saw me jump, right? Now, your man, your woman, your husband, your wife, your fiance, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, trying to figure out what's going on. Now you done created another issue. Now you have a disagreement. Now y'all quiet. Now there are questions. If you really got to the root of it and you really taken authority over you first, over your thoughts, conscious and subconscious, over your heart, this heart first, then over this heart, then you can be free to be in love because you're in love with all of this first. Then you can be in love with the person that you're with. So we hope. That's all I have. That's all God gave me. My wife said, well, what we're going to talk about? I don't know. We're going to find out when we go live. So this complete that series. Mm-hmm. Let us get to the root of things.
Amen.
So we've gotten to the root as far as we can go. Now, being at the table, we normally raw in this here. But this is raw as I can be without breaking any Facebook policies, because you have to get to the place that you're no longer allowing yourself to let fear stop you from living. Most of us exist and not live. Mm-hmm. And I've always told myself, I've always told my wife, since we've been together for 11 years, we've been married for 10, we've been together for 11. And I told her, I don't like existing. I've been told all my life, I used to walk with my head down. And my cousin Melvin Poindexter used to ask me every morning when I was walking to the bus stop, he said, John, he said, Cousin John, he said, why are you walking with your head down? He said, ain't nothing on the ground but dirt. He said, although we all come from dirt, there's nothing on the ground. He said, pick your head up. What you afraid of? What you scared of? I said, nothing. I said, I can see where I'm going. He said, yeah, we got peripheral vision. But he said, you got to learn to walk with your head up no matter what's going on in life, no matter how bad it gets. He said, start learning to walk with your head up no matter what's going on. And always keep your head up and walk with your head up. He said, always. He said, I know Kanpacha always told you, you always look a man and a woman in their eye. He said, it's a sign of respect. He said, so always walk with your head up and always look a person in their eyes when you talk to them. And never forget, he said, because you always say, yes, sir, no, sir. He said, always do that. He said, but stop walking with your head down. You have no reason to hold your head down. He said, you may not have everything you want now. He said, but one day God going to allow some things to happen in your life and you'll have everything you want. He said, now you're going to go through some things in life, but don't keep your head down no more. So what I want to tell you tonight, my ending thoughts, is keep your head up. Stop allowing yourself to be in bondage by your fear, because that empowers what people want to keep you afraid of. Because God didn't give you the spirit of fear, but of love, of power, and a sound mind. See, love, the word there is defined peace. Power is defined by the word authority. Mm-hmm. Sound mind simply is defined by the word discipline in our thoughts, our ways, our actions, our deeds, our manner, our manners, our character, everything that we do. He didn't give us that ability to do that because that's not what he's about. So whether you're saved or not saved, he never meant for none of us to be anybody's dictator. He never meant for any of us to be a bully over anybody, not even over ourselves. He never meant for leaders to be the Lord, which means to be at a position to make you feel like you being bullied inside the house of the Lord, the church, wherever you are part of a fellowship at. If that's where you feel like you're being bullied at, sorry, pastors, bishops, apostles, prophets, overseers, elders, evangelists, whatever you call yourself, whatever your title is, God didn't call you to do that. If you're leading in that manner, you're out of order. You don't believe it? You can check it out in the Word. And if you do a lot of searching of the Word, and you scholars of the Word, you're theologians, you'll find it. That's my ending words for you tonight. You ought to be free.
Amen. I'm going to end off with it like this. I gave you a scenario. I gave you something to picture with your mind. Apostle just gave you the scripture that I was getting ready to read, but he gave it to you already.
2 Timothy chapter number 1.
Remember that we don't have to walk or live in fear. This series pretty much started opening up my memory of looking at things across the board. Because sometimes things that we have been involved in or things that have happened in our life, we don't think that they are associated with our feelings or the things that we have allowed ourselves to get into or the people that we've allowed to come into our life. But when we sit back and take a look at it, that's why it's called, let's get to the root of things. When we sit back and we look at it, no matter how much of good was given to us, there was some negative impacts that came into our lives as well. We can't allow the negative impacts that came in our life to dictate where God has taken us. We have to remember that all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord. So whenever we look at that, we recognize that no matter what obstacle or what situation or what was presented to us, one, God allowed us to live through it. Mm-hmm. That we can speak on it, we can testify to it, and it was done so that we can help someone else go through it. We can help them overcome it. Why? Because we can recognize those emotions and those feelings. But most of all, we can let them know that I was able to live.
That's right.
Some things that we're calling fear is not fear. Some things are just being sober because some of us have been drunken with ignorance. So therefore, we don't have to be ignorant because God wants us to be sober. He wants us to be vigilant because our adversary, he's watching.
That's right.
He's waiting to catch us in that weak moment. That time that we're not paying any attention to what's going on, or that right when we get comfortable. You remember we used to say that a lot.
That's right.
Every time it seems like everything's starting to go good, it always be something happening. Guess what? If you are on guard and you are doing and have an active prayer life, trust me, God will not allow you to be caught unaware. I'm going to say this to you and I'm going to get ready to sign off. Whenever I was about 14, yeah, wasn't that junior high? 14? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was about 14. And this one day, me and my cousin decided that she didn't want to go to school. I said, okay, no problem. Let's not go. Well, first of all, we ain't going around nobody that I know. We going with your friends.
Yes, sir.
But while I was not at school, guess who went to the school? My mama. My mama was so in tune and had such a prayer life, and God had always had her in place. Every time my dumb tail thought I was smart, mm-hmm. she would always go, because my mama was the type that if she had time at work, she'd take her day off and say, I'm going to get Kim, and me and her going to go have lunch together. Because I had a single parent. I was raised in a single parent home. Mm-hmm. And that was her way because she did work a lot. That was her way of just having that one-on-one time with me at that time. By the time I became 15 or 16, I had foster brothers and sisters. But at this time, it was just me.
Right.
My mama went to that school to go get me. I wasn't there. Well, that afternoon, me and my cousin have made it back over to the school, going to get in the car rider line for us to get ready to go home like we've been at school all day. Well, instead of my aunt picking us up, it was my mama.
My.
My house got big. I said, hey, mama. She said, hey, where you been? I said, I was just, no, don't you lie to me. Where you been? Well, I got called a snitch because first of all, my mama rules and my cousin mama rules was two different set of rules. And I knew the way it was going down in my house wasn't going down in her house the same way. Well, lo and behold, I was about 16 and me and my sister decided we not going to school. As a matter of fact, our son and cousin was our driver to school because the bus wouldn't drive into our neighborhood because we stayed so close to the school.
Oh, wow.
But it wasn't at walking distance, but it wasn't in the bus ride distance either. So mama made arrangement for us to have a ride to school. So I was like, I don't want to go to school today. My sister said, okay, we ain't got to go to school. We done gave him gas money and we're going to tell him, give us your car.
Bad mistake.
And he gave it. And we rode all day, but guess what happened? We wasn't at school. Guess who went to school? Mama. We was only gone for half a day. Just half a day. We weren't even gone for the whole day.
That was the Holy Ghost.
But what happened is that when we went back for lunch to go for the last 3 classes, the kids met us in the hallway talking about, hey, your mama was up here and she was walking around the school looking for y'all. I said,
sound like my mama.
let me tell you something. I ain't have no poker face because I looked at my sister and said, well, I'm going to go on to go to the house and I'm going to go ahead and catch this one. I always know. It didn't take much because she knew I was going to tell on myself. My son is definitely my son. I was going to tell on myself. So whenever I got home, I walked down to the door. She said, where you been? Boy, I felt like when the Tina Turner movie, whatever, what was that? Whatever her mama said, where you been? No, Penny. That was on Good Times. Penny, where you been? Where you been, Penny? I felt like Penny. She was like, where you been? I said, huh?
She locked the bathroom?
No, she locked that front door. She knew I was on the running. I said, huh? I said, where you been? She said, don't you tell me no lie because I done been up to that school and I done walked around that school. I said, yes, ma'am, I know. I said, we just didn't go to school this morning. I said, but we came back. She said, no, you was not in place. So that fear that we talk about, sometimes it's because of the fact.
She said y'all wasn't in place.
We wasn't in place. Sometimes it's because of the fact we're not vigilant. And I thank God because of the fact my mother has such a prayer life and that she was so in tune that right whenever I got ready to step out and mess up, she was always there coming looking for me. Which means the Holy Ghost in her will let her know, I need you to go to that school because Kim's not in place. I need you to go to that school because Kim is not in that building. I need you to go check on Kim because Kim is not where she's supposed to be. And whenever I tell you I wasn't there, I was not there. And I didn't mind going back to get it right. So sometimes what we have fear about means we have to now exercise what the Lord has given us, because it says warning comes before destruction, right? So whenever I was out doing dumb stuff, hanging out in the street and skipping school, the Holy Ghost let her know that I wasn't in place, so she came looking for me. You get what I'm saying? And the funny part of it is that I always felt uncomfortable whenever I was out because I knew I was out of place. And the biggest thing that was always on my mind is, what if something happened to me? And because I was like that with her, I'm like that in my salvational walk. What if Christ come back now? Where will I be?
Mm.
So whenever I talk, and I encourage and I open my mouth and I share myself with you, I am an open book with you, because one thing I do know, nothing that I did should I feel ashamed for, because I did it. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
But because of grace, I've been able to be forgiven for it. And I can hold my head up and I can keep moving. That's what I share with you tonight. Keep moving.
Yes.
Hold your head up. Don't allow what you've been through. Trust me, I understand that this series here had you looking at some things that you really didn't want to look and face no more, some things that you really didn't want to have to deal with no more. But one of the greatest things that I look at, anything that's going to affect my walk with Him, I got to look at it. I got to face it. I got to deal with it, because I don't want nothing to come between me and my Savior. I don't want nothing to come between me and my God. I want to make sure that whenever He come, I hear Him say, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." Because of the fact, I do a lot of suffering here. I done had to shed a lot of tears here. I done had to deal with a lot of heartaches, some emotions, and a whole lot of riffraff that I didn't want to have to deal with, but I did. So why should I want to continue to be in it whenever when He come, I can be departed from it?
That's right.
So God bless you tonight. We have enjoyed you. Join us on Monday.
Yeah, Monday, Sunday.
Join us on Monday night at 8 o'clock. I look forward for our next seat at the table. God have not given me anything for what we will be talking about. But one of the greatest things that I do keep in mind about the seat at the table, He may not give us anything until we sit here and just start having conversation, because that's the purpose of the seat at the table. It's not here for us to sit here and preach to you. We preach on Sunday. We teach to you on Wednesday. It is our place to encourage and to build, to help edify you so that you can stand in this day and in this time. We recognize that you are a human being inside and outside of the church. We understand that sometimes it feels as though everything you have given out is enough. Sometimes we recognize that you're just exhausted and you don't know what else to do. We recognize that. Why? Because we're human and we're fighting the same issues. But one thing about it, we're still staying on course and we're still staying to the pace, because we know this race is not given to the swift nor the strong, but to he that endure to the end. It's endure time. We love you. God bless you. Have a great night. Join us in the morning at 11:30. God bless you.